Hey, welcome back, my dear macroeconomics students, to this very, very important and jam-packed video. Today, we are going over inflation, deflation, disinflation, the causes of these, the consequences, and the pros and cons of inflation and deflation. Okay, so we're going to be going over the definitions, we're going to be going over what it is, the pros and cons, as well as how to graph. You know, us economists really like to be able to put things into graphs and explain concepts and ideas, such as inflation or deflation, using graphs. Okay, so let me give you a definition of inflation first. So the definition of inflation is the rate at which purchasing power decreases. Because we all heard of inflation before, right? It's like the prices in the store is increasing, therefore inflation exists, or something similar like that. So inflation is the rate at which purchasing power, okay, or prices for good decreases. Deflation is the exact opposite. It could also be seen as negative inflation. Okay, deflation is when purchasing power increases. Okay, so there's basically both two types of inflation and two types of deflation. There's going to be demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. There's going to be demand pull deflation. Okay, here's a typo. It's going to be demand pull deflation and a cost push and actually what we call this is supply push deflation. Okay, so then these two are the types of inflation and the types of deflation that we're going to be studying about. So first things first, what are demand pull inflations? Okay, what are demand pull inflation? Demand pull inflations are caused when factors of production are being pushed, leading to higher prices. Now, look at this graph right here. Look at this graph that I am highlighting right here. Now, what is this? This is the Keynesian macroeconomics diagram. Now, remember, aggregate demand, okay, could be pushed to the right. When aggregate demand is pushed from 81 to 82, factors of production such as land, capital, machinery is being utilized to higher levels. Therefore, they're being pushed more. Okay, when they are being pushed more, factors will cause inflation to occur. Now, this is kind of a good type of inflation. Now, what are some factors that may shift aggregate demand to the right from 81 to 82? For example, reduce in interest rates. Okay, a reduction in taxes, increasing in government spending, or increasing in income. Okay, these will all cause aggregate demand to increase. Okay. When aggregate demand increases, real GDP increases, and therefore demand pull inflation increases. Demand pull inflation exists also because of the factors of production are being pushed, leading to higher prices. So this is the first type of inflation, because it's demand pull inflation, where money supply, okay, when money supply in the world is increased to such a high level, okay, there's an influx of cash. What people say and people hear is the government is printing money, okay, printing money, the inflation of cash through whether it is increased income or government spending or taxes, federal fiscal monetary policies, leading to an influx of cash in the economy, leading to demand pull inflation. So this is the first type of inflation, okay. Now, here's the graph if you guys are trying to draw the graph. Now, what is the second type of inflation? What we call cost push inflation. Okay, when there is an increase in cost of production. Okay, what do I mean by that? For example, oil. Okay, a very major and critical factor in any machinery, any production factor. Okay, so if the price of oil increases, then the price of production increases. If the price of production increases, then suppliers have no choice, right? They have no choice but to sell their goods at higher prices, therefore leading to inflation. Okay, so this is kind of the bad type of inflation, and this is once again caused by the the short-run aggregate supply to decrease. Okay, why does the aggregate supply decrease? Aggregate supply decreases because the factors of production and the cost of production are decreasing. That is what causes the short-run aggregate supply to decrease. Now, why may short-run aggregate supply decrease? Increasing in raw material prices, increasing in wages, increases in taxes, a stronger exchange rate. What do I mean by stronger exchange rate? For example, major oil-producing countries, Saudi Arabia. For example, you live in China, okay? You're importing oil, a major, crucial part of production from Saudi Arabia. If the Chinese yuan is decreased and Saudi Arabia dollars is increasing, okay, then that will lead to a stronger exchange rate, which means it's more expensive for you to produce stuff right now, leading to cost push inflation. So I hope these two clears up the two types of inflation. Now, what deflation? Okay, what are the two types of deflation? Now, there are one type of deflation called demand pull deflation. Demand pull deflation is very, very, very bad for the economy. Supply push deflation is okay. It may even be beneficial. But what is demand push deflation? Demand push deflation is when the demand in the economy decreases. When the demand in the economy decreases, that is very bad for the economy. Let's look at the graph right here. Real GDP, it's on the x-axis. When demand pull deflation occurs, 81 gets shifted to 82. Real GDP decreases. There's a shrinkage and decrease in demand, leading to real GDP to decrease. What does that cause? That cause a decrease in GDP because of lack of AD. This is very bad for the economy, especially if it is anticipated. If anticipated deflation occurs, then consumers will stop spending money because they know that tomorrow, if tomorrow my money is going to be worth more, and if tomorrow I could buy more stuff with my money, why should I spend money today when I could just postpone for tomorrow? So delay and decreasing in spending will cause a negative feedback loop, causing, more demand pull deflation to occur. Okay, this is very bad for the economy. The second type of deflation is not that bad. It's called supply push deflation. Is when decreases in the cost of production occur. For example, decreases in wages, decreases in raw material prices, decreases in taxes, or lower exchange rate. So these are all cause the factors of production to decrease, and therefore suppliers are able to charge a lower price, and therefore deflation occurs. So these are the four types of deflation. I think you really have to be able to draw these four diagrams, have to be able to illustrate and actually talk about what these four diagrams actually mean. So now that we have talked about the four type, whether it is demand pull inflation, cost push inflation, demand pull deflation, or supply push deflation, let's talk about some pros and cons of inflation and deflation respectively. So some pros of inflation, so many people think of inflation as really bad. My money is going to be worth less tomorrow. Is that very bad? Not necessarily, Inflation can be good in certain criteria. For example, workers like to increase their pay. It's very fundamental. It's really easily understood. Even if they are just keeping up with inflation, workers are still really happy to have increased pay. So that's the first thing. First pro to inflation. A second pro is production increases. Now, when there is an influx of money supply, when there is more capital in the economy, production increases, real GDP increase, and people are more happy overall. Unemployment also decreases. When there is a lot of available credit, when money flow is very apparent and easily accessible, employers have more money and therefore they are able to employ more people. If there is a lack of money supply in the economy, the employers have no choice but to lay off employees. Therefore, employment also decreases. And stable economic growth is also another major pro that comes with inflation. Now, what are some cons of inflation? Now, first and foremost, purchase power decreases. This is a very bad one. Lots of baby boomers are retiring and realizing that inflation has taken a large portion of what they originally have. So purchasing power decreases. Production costs also increase. For example, the raw materials for, let's say, wood. Wood prices increases because of inflation. Now, what if you're a table manufacturer? If you're a table manufacturer, that it will hurt your bottom line a lot. Since, wood prices increase and your production cost increases, leading to perhaps harms in industry. Anticipation inflation will also cause you to spend all your money today because that money will be spent worth less tomorrow, for example, leading to more inflation. But that's not that likely. Now, pros and cons of deflation. Pros of deflation, purchasing power increases. Of course, that may be a con as well, but purchasing power increases. Your money is worth more tomorrow than it is today. Sort of good for the consumer. Economy has to cool down, Maybe the economy was overworked, producing beyond capacity. A cool down economy, interest rates could come up a bit, and taxes could come up a bit. Another major thing for a major pro for deflation is that government debt decreases, So government gets to pay back their debts and instead of just blowing out of proportion because of inflation. Now, some cons to deflation, of course, postponed spending and our GDP decreases. So here are the pros and cons. Here are the definitions, graphs, and factors for demand pull inflation, cost push inflation, demand pull deflation, and supply push deflation. I hope this video is helpful. If it is, I hope to see you guys in the next one. We're going to be talking about objectives of government in economic development. So I hope this video